Spider people, where is your past? Spider people, how long will you last?
In 2015, Sony and Disney announced that they would temporarily share the film rights to Spider-Man. See the same named retrospective, which led to Spider-Boy subsequently being bundled into the MCU. More about that and Sony Spider-Verse in CLUB vs. Spider-Boy. 2018 sees the release of the head-biting Venom with PG-13 as start to Sony's cinecrapic universe whatsoever. Spider-Man's arch-nemesis, who looks like a bigger, stronger version in black, first appeared as Venom in March 1988's Amazing Spider-Man 298, in the beginning with Eddie Brock as the host, and later also with others, roughly visualized in Raimi's Spider-Man 3. In the very last comic book of the series I have ever read as a child, Amazing Spider-Man 252 from May 1984, he had originally brought the symbiote from the, here in Germany of course, never published, 12-part special edition Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars issue 8 as a supposed piece of clothing. Later he realizes that the black suit has intelligence and feeds on the life energy of its host, which he wants to merge with. So he exploits its weakness to sound waves and supposedly gets rid of it on a bell tower in a church.
Fall in love with everything that you would love to love. You know that laughter is a kind form to wake you up, so don't make me feel unpleasant like you do. You know that everything will fall right back on you.
Reporter Eddie Brock, who has just lost his job and fiancé because of a critical article about Carlton Drake and his mysterious Life Foundation company, which among other things experiments on crashed symbionts, is taken during his researching the company building by the escaping alien life form / symbiont Venom as a host. Symbionts can, because script says so, only survive in a certain body in the long term. Together now they want, for whatever reason, prevent another symbiont to capture a rocket and come back with an alien army and who cares?
Fall in love with everything, fall in love with life. Forget about your troubles and be a little nice. You will not see me if you don't want to look. Just come and get me in my big, big bed of love.
Apparently, in order not to lose the rights to the franchise, Sony has to make every few years a crappy movie, pretending it has something to do with Spider-Man, although he is nowhere to see here. The $100 million crap by Ruben Fleischer received back then mostly negative reviews, but still made over $850 million worldwide back and was a financial success.
Big, big bed of love.
Venom, let there be Tom Hardy overacting, doesn't know whether it wants to be a silly comedy or a serious drama. Eddie hears constantly Venom's voice and talks to himself all the time, or to Venom, who is visible only to him. The story doesn't follow any rules or makes any sense whatsoever. At no point does it become clear why the audience should even sympathize with the arrogant, selfish Eddie Brock, which ruthlessly pursues his goals and constantly acts like a jackass.
Right in the night, right in the night, right in the night, you'll find that if you wanna fall in love, you'll fall in love.
even his fiancée, who just happens to work for Drake's company, is spied on by him. And what exactly connects Venom especially with him?
If you wanna fall in love, you fall in love. Right in the night. Right in the night. A sweet thing is what you get. When you fall in love, you fall in love.
In the comics, it was their history and now shared hatred with Peter Parker. Also, Venom's desire to do good sometimes and to be a kind of anti-hero results from his former connection with Peter. But here, his motives, power, strengths and weaknesses seem to have to been made up during filming. And the god-awful effects, especially in the final battle, are among the worst I've seen in a while. 2021 gave us Sony's horrible, boring, total disaster Venom 2 Let There Be Carnage, again bloodless with PG-13. In this relationship comedy, Eddie is still struggling, or rather is struggling again, to get used to his new life with his naughtier half Venom, who, just like in the first part, briefly separates from him to once again realize that Eddie is his one and only, since everyone else seems to die a short time after the symbiosis. During a prison visit, where Eddie gets bitten because script says so, a serial killer becomes the host of the symbiont Carnage.
So fall in love with stories of fairy tales of truth. Innocence is part of what you're losing with your youth. But show a little confidence, show a little class. Don't kiss the past.
After escape, he frees his girlfriend Cherie,
Fall in love with passion, fall in love with lust.
whose magic powers is yelling guys to death. Sounds familiar.
Fall in love with music, and you will get by. Right in the night, right in the night, right in the night, you'll find that if you wanna fall in love, you'll fall in love.
And gets eaten by Venom after the usual unwatchable CGI crap final. Andy Serkis' $110 million sequel Abomination, next to which the first one almost seems solid, made at higher costs as part 1 with $500 million worldwide, practically just half as much as its predecessor. Venom Let There Be Garbage is such a pitiful nothing that its only scene worth mentioning comes from another movie, basically filmed off the screen.
Fall in love.
In a post-credits scene, it is for whatever reason implied that, no joke, they are now in the same universe as Spider-Boy after all, since he shows up in a news broadcast. In 2024, Kelly Marcel's directorial debut, Venom: The Last Dance, concludes the trilogy. After the events of the last part, Eddie is in Mexico on the run as a murder suspect. The military is now experimenting with symbiotes in Area 51. And is attacked by a xenophage, a symbiote hunter, on behalf of a certain Null, the creator of the symbiotes. He is after Venom's codex, which was created when he revived his host, and can now, similar to the Nazgul's Frodo in Lord of the Rings when he uses the ring, track it down in transformed form. With a code, which is only destroyed if Eddie or Venom die, Null could be somehow freed from the prison the symbiotes locked him in long time ago. Venom: The Last Shit is a little bit better than its predecessor. Worse was impossible, but is still the opposite of good. And made again at higher cost, $120 million, worldwide less than $500 million. With only $51 million in the US, the lowest box office opening weekend of all Venom movies. In the final of this confused, unnecessarily complicated, overly talkative CGI fest, which conveys the entire plot through countless explanators, Venom sacrifices himself to save Eddie. In an end credit scene, we learn that after Venom's death, the universe is no longer safe from the terror of the Null Snore Hat or something. What? Has he also plans to terrorize mankind with more stupid Spider-Man movies without Spider-Man? And in another, Venom's death is directly corrected. Part of him can escape after a fire, making his sacrifice basically meaningless.
Right in the night, right in the night, right in the night, you'll find that if you wanna fall in love, you'll fall in love. Right in the night, right in the night, a sweet thing is what you get when you fall in love, you fall in love.
In 2022, Morbius already flopped twice in a row. Spider-Man only appears here for a second on a poster to deceive the audience by putting the scene into the trailer. The character of Morbius, a famous biochemist who after a self-experiment to cure his rare blood disease mutates into a pseudo-vampire with its abilities but also an uncontrollable thirst for blood similar to Blade, first appeared in the August 1971 issue 101 of The Amazing Spider-Man as his opponent. Later also as the title character in 2 of 11 issues of Vampire Tales 1973 to 1975 and 12 of 31 issues of Adventure into Fear published from 1970 to 1975. In the comics, as in the movie, a kind of anti-hero constantly in search of a cure. He only feeds on the blood of the guilty, which doesn't always work out. In the movie, Michael Morbius promises his only friend Milo, before he leaves the therapy facility thanks to a researcher's grant, to one day find a cure for their rare blood disease. When he actually discovers it 25 years later as a famous doctor and researcher, inventing among others artificial blood, after taking it he turns into the mentioned pseudo-vampire, kills all the passengers on a ship except for the female lead, and is eventually on the run from the police. He is initially able to stop his constant thirst for blood for several hours with his artificial one, but the periods become every time shorter. Despite warnings, his longtime backer Milo secretly takes a dose and also becomes a vampire, but without a conscience, with a taste for killing. So it comes to a confrontation between the two in the final. The US science fiction horror by Daniel Espinosa, which is quite bloodless thanks to its PG-13 rating, was actually supposed to be released in 2020, but got several times delayed. Morbius, which is completely unknown to most viewers, even as a Spider-Man comic fan, I had never heard of him, rightly received negative feedback across the board and made on an estimated $75 million budget only $167 million worldwide back. Was made fun of and became the subject of internet memes, which popularity wrongly prompted Sony to re-release the legendarily unbelievably boring trash fest, which comes especially in the action scenes across like an underlit grey mess, 2 months later. Only to bomb, this time with only $280,000 at the box office, even worse.
Right in the night, right in the night, right in the night, you'll find that if you wanna fall in love, you'll fall in love. Right in the night, right in the night, a sweet thing is what you get when you fall in love, you fall in love.
In the two mid-credit scenes, Adrian Toomes from the MCU, aka the Vulture knockoff from the Spider-Boy universe, appears thanks to the Doctor Strange spell from Spider-Boy 3 and seeks out Michael to team up with him in the future.
Different plane where heart and mind become the same.
But Morbius is still Citizen Kane and high art compared to S.J. Clarkson's 2024 cinema debut Madame Web, which at similar cost of 80 million with a worldwide box office of only 100 million flopped even harder. The supporting character Madame Web first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man 210 in November 1980 as an ally. There, Cassandra Webb is a blind elderly woman who can see the future, with muscle weakness, therefore connected to a life support system that resembles a spider web. The so-called adaptation, which has practically nothing in common with the original and is supposedly set in 2003 to tie in with Spider-Boy, I guess, is about a young, almost apathetically indifferent, unsympathetic paramedic whose pregnant mother, while searching for a healing spider, but actually it gives superpowers, in the jungle of Peru was betrayed and fatally injured by team member Ezekiel / beard-twirling supervillain. And gives, with the help of spider people who treat her with a miracle spider before her death, birth to daughter Cassandra. 30 years later, Cassie has during a mission in New York a near-death accident experience and can now see into the future as far and precisely or hazily as the script says. Ezekiel, also in New York, rich and equipped with the latest surveillance technology, has also developed these visionary abilities, precisely a certain vision, namely that of his death, plus Spider-Man powers, but can also eliminate enemies with poison, and collects information on 3 young women who constantly kill him as Spider-Women in his exclusive vision. Cassie saves them, grown women who behave like children, from him, takes them to a forest in a stolen cab, where they find a tavern to celebrate, therefore found by the evil Spider-Man, who is constantly being run over by Madame Terminator with a car, then hides them with her work colleague Ben Parker, Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, and his sister-in-law Mary, who is pregnant with Peter Parker, but whose name is apparently not allowed to appear, takes a quick trip to Peru to find out more about her mother from the isolated Spider-Man tribe, and is back in time for the grand final, where Madame Product Placement faces with her psychic / drive-over superpowers, together with the powerless not yet Spider-Girls, the evil Spider-Man. There are no superheroes in Madame Woke. The only costumed one here is just the evil Spider-Man. But it deliberately deceives the viewer with scenes in the trailer in which the 4 women can be seen in superhero outfits. In reality, only seconds of visions, and all of them completely in the deliberately misleading trailer, which is in my view outright fraud. So typical Sony, constantly advertising with just before the credits scenes. See also the short appearance of Rhino at the end of the not so amazing Spider-Man 2 trailer. In the same year, J.C. Chandor's Kraven the Hunter also enters the Spider-Man Free Sonyverse. The character of Kraven, the famous big game hunter Sergei Nikolaevich Kravinov, with a life goal of defeating Spider-Man to be the greatest hunter in the world, first appeared as his opponent in The Amazing Spider-Man 15 in August 1964. And dies in the extremely popular Kraven the Last Hunt storyline in The Amazing Spider-Man 293 and 294 in November 1987. In the so-called adaptation, Sergei and half-brother Dmitri is prepared by his father Nikolai to take over his drug trade. During a hunting trip, Sergei is mortally wounded and found by a girl named Calypso, who injects him with a saving serum. Back from the dead, he discovers animal-like qualities, aka superpowers. And disgusted by his father's actions, flees to a hidden sanctuary in Russia that belonged to his mother. 16 years later, he works under the name Kraven as a vigilante, taking out the criminals on his list. When Nikolai refuses to pay the ransom for Dmitri, kidnapped by the mercenary Rhino, after an experiment with the power of a rhinoceros, Kraven tracks down Calypso, now a lawyer, to help find his brother. Kraven is such a stick-together mess that it was only released about 2 years after finishing. It should actually come out in January 23. Some trailer scenes aren't even in the movie. Comic fans ignored even free advanced screenings, and Sony announced even before the movie was released the temporary end of their Spider-Man Less Nonsense verse. The mega flop conclusion to the Sonyverse, estimated cost of $130 million, made in America only $11 million on its opening weekend. Which even knocked Madame Web out of the last place with its $15 million US start, which was already a joke. The completely pointless action parade with hair-raising dialogue, in which things just happen because why not, Calypso is just fudged into the story, appears twice out of nowhere to save his life and then disappears again without a trace, portrays Kraven as an ordinary superhero who fights evil, even his own family. In the comics he's just a villain with principles such as fair hunt. But Kraven is still by far the best of all Sonyverse movies though, and compared to the previous duds, at least most of the time entertaining.